The Xiegu G-90 expansion card comes in a box. It is quite small, and we're going to set it off to the side. We also get this cable that obviously fits in here in one place only, and the other extreme goes into the G-90. Then we have some connectors, banana plug connectors that we're going to leave off to the side. The other thing we're going to need is this cable that they call the blue cable, or the Xiegu data cable. This one actually comes in the G-90 itself. So it's got an FTDI, I believe it's called, chip inside here, and it's got also just a plug. That's going to be the CAT control of our setup. One thing to note is that this guy requires a driver. So you have to go ahead and download that driver into your computer first. And you're asked not to plug this in to your Xiegu when you turn on your Xiegu. In other words, have this cable disconnected, then turn on the Xiegu G-90, and then plug in the cable. That way you avoid any trouble with the firmware being overridden. The other cable that I got is this, which is a cable that has 1, 2, 3 connectors here, 1, 2, 3 connectors here. It's just a male to male. This one did not come in the box. I had it in my toolbox. The other thing we will require is this guy, which is just a crossover, or they call it a USB sound card, from the microphone and headphone jacks here to a USB connector. Again, this did not come in the box. I got it separate. And lastly, another thing that I had in my toolbox was one of these female connectors to a green and a red audio cable, which are made for the speaker and for the headphones. This did not come in the box. Okay, so this splitter right here goes into here, headphone to headphone and microphone to microphone. Okay, and the other thing that we do is we connect one of these extremes right here. Again, this is 1, 2, 3 connections. There are different types of plugs that have one more connection, so be careful. You have to have a 3 connection one. Connect that there, and essentially now what you have is a cable that goes from 1, 2, 3 audio connection jack over to a USB. This guy is going to go here in the AF.CON connection. And then this fellow right here is going to go, as we said, as the controller in a USB connection and to the G-90, to the side of the radio. This one goes into this only jack that will fit it. The only thing to be aware of is that this has 2 connections on the bottom and 2 pins on the bottom and 3 pins on the top. And you see here that you have 2 pin gaps in the bottom and 3 pin gaps on the top. So you want to make sure that that one lines up correctly. There. And this guy right here is going to go into the G-90 in the next step. For this step, we're going to go ahead and connect this cable right here, the data cable, over to the back of the G-90. Again, just a heads up to make sure that you have 2 pins on one side and 3 pins on the other, and that they line up with the back of your G-90. In mine, the flat top goes to the bottom part and plugs right in. You don't want to get this one wrong because you're going to be applying some pressure and you don't want to be bending any pins. Next, we go to the blue cable again, and this guy now is going to fit on the side over here of the G-90. It's the second button from the top, not the one for the headphones, but the one right below. Now you have this guy. Again, this cable right here came with the G90. So it was in the G90 box that I had in my closet there. So now you're set up as far as hardware. From this side now, again, you have this cable leading to a USB through this sound card and a splitter and this male-to-male that I've got going into the AF-CON lead. And on the other side then you have another USB for the cat control that comes from the side of the Xiegu G-90. So at this point we're ready with the hardware. Now let's look at the software. One thing we want to make sure as far as hardware also is the G90 is actually configured properly. For that, what we have to do is make sure that the microphone is not used in the front, but it's actually used in the back. So, and also that we don't have the Vox control, and that the audio in and the audio out levels are correctly set. Okay, so start with the line mic. You click once, and then this guy, 1, 2. Right here, we have the line input. So the line input, when you first bring this up, is going to be set to mic. You want to make sure it's set to line. And then after that, you exit. Then after that, what you want to do is you want to long press the function key and then see that you have these options. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the aux in volume. It defaults to 8, and it's a good thing to just leave it where it is. Click it one more time and you have the aux out volume. It defaults to 15, and that's a pretty good place to leave it at. So then you can click exit and you're done there. The only other thing to test is to make sure you don't have the, let me exit here, you don't have the Vox. The Vox needs to be off. I know some folks actually use the Vox to control the radio, but in my setup, I use the Vox off. So those are the only hardware checks to do on your G90 before proceeding to the software. So with this setup now, the G90 is connected to the breakout box, the CE19 breakout box, and then the CE19 breakout box has an audio cable that goes through a splitter to the USB sound card into the computer. And on this side over here, we have the blue cable that goes directly to the side of the G90. So at this point, now we're ready to start FL Rig and start actually using WSJT-X. Now we configure FL Rig to work with the G90. First, disconnect the blue cable from your computer, plug in the banana end onto the side port, and turn on your G90. Then you can go ahead and plug in the blue cable, the USB, onto your computer, and then launch FL Rig. Click on Config, Set Up Transceiver, select G90 from the top drop-down, select COM4 from here, and make sure your baud rate is at 19200. Click on Init, and then at that point you get this green connected light, and your G90 is now talking to FL Digi, as you can see by changing the variable frequency oscillator on your G90. So at this point you have WSJT-X and you're ready to go. The program is also running with FL Rig on the side, and you can see that by default it's come up at a good frequency. But let's go through the file settings and see what we've got there. Under the radio tab, very important that you define your rig as FL Rig. Then that is essentially a software device that WSJT-X talks to, and it talks to your radio. The audio tab is also very important. Notice that there we have the Logitech USB sound card. So you make sure that's an input and output. And after that, you're good to go. Now if you control anything from the drop down in WSJT-X, you notice the FL Rig is got the right information and it passes it on to your radio. So you just You can enable transmit and all the things that you normally do with WSJT-X to call CQ. And that's all the settings for WSJT-X. For WinLink Express, similarly, we pretty much just start out the application. In this case, I'm using VARA. And under radio setup, call up the ICOM 7100, put in 00 for ICOM address, and click on USB digital. Select your COM port, COM4 in my case, and your baud rate should be 19,200. Make sure that Enable DTR is clicked, and for serial port to use, make sure you have CIV. And that is all you do there as far as your radio setup. So under settings for VARA, make sure your sound card is tuned. This is the normal way you do it before, just to make sure your ALC is not being overdriven. And that is it. Now you select a particular repeater that is WinLink enabled, just like you normally would with WinLink Express. And you're ready to click on Start. Again, very important that you don't overdrive the audio and that you have a clear signal. In this case, we might have something right now in the frequency. So let's double check to make sure our sound card is at a good value. And you can change it a little bit, see if you get any results on your main screen. But in this case, we should be good. This is going to be a trial and error type of setting. Once you set it, you forget it. And at this point, you're ready to go ahead and click on Start and start WinLink. Well, hopefully this was useful. And yeah, this is how you set it up.